how does Harden expect to be received by the limited number of fans that'll be here tonight after everything that went down?
Well, I'm not sure about expect, Zubin, but he told me that the love and appreciation that he's given to the city and that he still gives to the city, he says he's hoping that favor can be returned, is what he told me. So he's hoping that he can be received with love, was what he said. He's hoping that people remember the good times that they had in Houston. Obviously, their breakup is probably still fresh in a lot of fans' minds. He's not running away from that in our conversation. He noted how challenging that was. He reiterated what he had shared with Rachel Nichols, which was that he wished things had gone more smoothly. Now, when he's looking around at how it went for other players in other sports in their exits in Houston, he said that he wished his had gone a little bit more like that. But despite all of that, he's hoping that instead of looking at those last couple of months, which were ugly, and he does not deny that, and I think that fans are very justified in remembering that, he's hoping that they can look back over the course of the 8 seasons, over the course of winning MVP and making a run to the Western Conference Finals, and that's what fans will be bringing. But it should be interesting, right? Because Houston has 4,500 fans in Toyota Center. That's not something we see very often this season in the midst of a pandemic. So it'll be interesting to see the fans' reaction. Mask up, Houston. This one's going to be interesting.
Malika, I just want to give you some love real quick. You've been one of the hardest working people during this pandemic, everything from down to the bubble. I mean, I see you everywhere, so I want to say that first and foremost. Congrats on all your success.
I appreciate you, J-Will.
Always. I'm curious, what was the reaction around the team when they heard that Tillman Fertitta actually made the announcement to a degree that they were going to retire James Harden's number?
Well, in chatting with a couple of folks around the team, I think that there was that's what should happen eventually. When I reached out to sources in the Rockets and they confirmed that it was a thought of he did a lot for this franchise. Tillman Fertitta said that he will always be a Rocket, and he made his first couple of years owning the team exciting. And so I don't get the sense that a lot of folks around the Nets or around the Houston Rockets were necessarily surprised. Perhaps there was a little bit of an eyebrow raise at the timing of sharing that sentiment, given the air hasn't been completely cleared. I think this game is going to provide potentially some of that closure, but it wasn't necessarily surprising given why a lot of people in this day and age retire jerseys isn't necessarily just how many championships they won for a franchise. It's what that person meant to that city, how much they may or may not have put that person, that team, that franchise on the map. There wasn't a whole lot of surprise. Now, I will say, just taking a look around mentions on Twitter, taking a look around, the hotel lobby when I very briefly went downstairs to grab my dinner and bring it back up to my hotel room, that's where I saw fans having a little bit more of a mixed reaction to announcing in this moment that the intention is to retire his jersey number.
Okay, I mean, they've looked pretty incredible when Kyrie and James have been on the floor together, but what's the latest with the big man? What's going on with KD and this hamstring injury? When can we expect to see him back?
Well, the Nets are hopeful that it's going to be as soon as possible after All-Star. The tricky thing with this is that this as well as I do. Initially, they just expected him to miss 2, maybe 3 games, but initially they said just 2 games. And Steve Nash had said that this is a combination of them being overly cautious, but also the hamstring, when they did more imaging on it, showing that it needed a little bit more time. And so they're marrying those 2 things and taking an extremely slow approach here because of the luxuries you just said. They already have Kyrie Irving. They already have James Harden. They rattled off an 8-game win streak in that time. And so there really isn't a rush to bring Kevin Durant back. That being said, James Harden told me it's frustrating for Kevin Durant not to be on the floor. It's frustrating for the team not to have Kevin Durant on the floor. That being said, what they're keeping in mind, their mantra, if you will, is the most important basketball is yet to come, and that's when we need to be fully healthy. So the goal is they want to have some time under their belt before then, before the playoffs hit, to rack up more than just 7 games played together so that they can continue to build chemistry. But it shouldn't be too long after the All-Star break for Kevin Durant to come back.
Malika, what moves do you expect the Nets to make before the trade deadline, if any at all?
Well, The teams at the top, I'm really looking at potentially the buyout market for the Nets. The teams at the top, they tend to always kind of be looking, what tweaks can we make? How can we get a little bit better? And from what I'm hearing from the Nets, they are no different. They're still not necessarily sold on exactly their big man rotation. They are very high on Nicholas Claxton. DeAndre Jordan has turned into a really nice mentor for a lot of folks. They've been using Nicholas Claxton a lot, but they're still trying to be careful with his body. He has only played a handful of games his freshman season and now this season. And so they're still looking to see how that's all going to round out. That's what I would be keeping an eye on for the moves that they could potentially make, especially in the buyout market.
As you continue to do a great job covering the NBA, not only for us but for yourself, what are you hearing about the New York Knicks and the way the fans are reacting around town about them, I guess, possibly making the playoffs, so to speak?
Well, it's incredible to see what the Knicks have done. I mean, the New York is back, baby. Is that too strong of a sentiment to share? Because when was the last time you could look at the Knicks and say, wow, they are incredibly competitive? They have an all-star. And then also look across the bridge and say, wow, Brooklyn has a real shot at winning a championship. There is a buzz. There is an excitement. Whenever I go to my bodega to pick up coffee, whenever I am walking around town a little bit and there's someone I see, I'm seeing a lot more jerseys. There is just a buzz, a tone, a basketball tone to the city right now that I think that New York missed. So Madison Square Garden, the New York Knicks, are still the franchise of New York.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus right now.